Hello, everybody. I'm Vince Marino, and welcome to my Lunch and Learn. We have a special guest, SEPCO, with Zach Nepa and Cody Kaufman here with SEPCO, and great company, great customer of mine. I'm going to flash a few things up on the screen here. SEPCO has a great website that talks about their products. They're also on LinkedIn. We do some promotion on LinkedIn with SEPCO. As you can see here, they're also a partner on empoweringpumps.com. So, without any further ado, let me toss to Zach. Tell us about yourself, where you're coming from, where you're going, and what do you do at SEPCO, and go from there.
Zach Nepa, I'm regional manager for the Northeast with SEPCO, covering from Maine to Virginia. Also have a role with product management with our air seal and bearing isolator as well. We'll get into those products. SEPCO itself is a sealing equipment products company. As its name, that's what SEPCO stands for, actually, a sealing equipment products company. And what we do is we seal rotating and static equipment from a wide range of applications and a wide range of services, whether it's liquids and slurries in the pulp and paper industry to powders and chocolates in the food industry to slurries and hard rocks in the mining industry. We focus on solving reliability problems in the field as it pertains to sealing rotating equipment and static equipment.
Well, since you brought up mining, I'm going to just also mention that you're not only a sponsor at with Empowering Pumps, but you're a sponsor at the Empowering Pumps and Industry Conference coming up in just a couple of weeks. You can see it right here. SEPCO Gold Level sponsor at the EPIC event. Again, EPIC is November 12th and 13th at the Colorado School of Mine. We certainly look forward to having you guys there to address both the mining industry, the rotating equipment industry, and possibly network with some engineers that are being produced at the Colorado School of Mines. So good on you
It's a great
there.
school.
Yeah. Cody, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your role at SEPCO, where you're located?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'm located in North Austin, Texas, where our plastics division is located. So yeah, that's along with all the rotating sealing applications that Zach mentioned a little bit there. SEPCO also is also in the static sealing. So we do a lot of gaskets, we do a lot of valve seats, we do a lot of valve seals. We do in the transportation industry. I'm focused primarily on polymer materials. So PTFE compounds, PEEK and PPS, all high performance materials that not only support SEPCO's products like the Air Seal and other products that maybe we'll talk about, but then we also take those direct to market in a whole host of sealing applications. So very unique SEPCO in that we handle kind of the full range of sealing solutions for our customers.
Excellent. So one of the goals I have here at the Lunch and Learn with Vince is to capture on video how we can help people, not just for today, but in the future. So if there's an engineer a year from now, 2 years from now, and he inquires via search engine of some kind, I have a problem with X at factory Y. What do I do with it? I'm trying to get that down. I guess back in the old days, people would write a book about it, but I'm trying to build a small library of help for engineers, operations supervisors, maintenance people in various industries. So I'm going to go back to Zach for a minute. And Zach, if you've got any kind of story, analogy that you might want to share, and let me preface it by saying, feel free to direct me on your website and I can share as you're speaking. If there's anything visually that you want me to pull up, I'd be happy to do that for you. So without further ado, Zach, if you want to share a little bit about one or two of the stories that you've encountered over the years.
Yep. I'll start with a story out of a paper mill up in upstate New York. And there's not everyone's going to be familiar with all the applications in paper mills, but to give a quick rundown of this application, it's referred to as a pulper. And a pulper is essentially a giant vertical mixer that's mixing and they're quite literally pulping uh, paper stock. And what that paper stock does is it swishes around in this large shafted, I believe this one had a 10-inch shaft, piece of equipment that's barricaded by cement barriers and has a gearbox below it controlling the speed of the shaft. And they're notorious for two things. First of all, the shaft run out. So a shaft is supposed to run true, without any movement. And what they have with pulpers is they are dealing with uneven weights in the vessel itself, and
Mm,
it causes the shaft to move, right? And so this is a major problem for most types of seals. And furthermore, when it moves, what it does is it causes damage to the seals, the existing seals. In this case, it was packing, and packing is great. And this is not a knock on packing. It's just that type of application. It's not necessarily designed for if there's run out, because what happens is it will compress the packing and the packing will not return to its original shape and it'll leak. So what was happening here is it was leaking onto the gearbox and causing bearing failure in the gearbox because it would get into the oil. And when the paper stock got into the oil, it caused a premature bearing failure.
mm,
And from there, it is a very expensive process to pull that gearbox out and to repair that gearbox. Also, the product itself leaking out is a major expense as well.
mm.
Plus, it leads to a lot of additional unnecessary downtime and cleanup work, housekeeping. So what we did with this application is we put our SEPCO air seal on it, and we took a systems approach. So we didn't just, you had mentioned earlier, we're not just slapping a seal into a place and hoping that it works. We take a systems approach. So we started by looking at what the problem was. Okay, so the shaft was moving and product was leaking out, and we had to come up with a seal, which we already had, but had to come up with a design to accommodate the shaft run out. So we took a multi-pronged approach with three different products that we have. One being an air seal. And it's air seal is a non-contact seal that utilizes air to form a pressure barrier at the stuffing box that will keep any product that was leaking out. It'll keep that product in. And what it does is it utilizes air, builds a back pressure, and internally it has a bushing, if you will. We call it a throttle that receives the air, and then what it does is it's allowed to pivot internally and follow the shaft around. And the beauty of it is it's a non-contact seal. Now it'll touch the shaft, but it won't have a frictional contact on the shaft because there's clearances built inside of that. So that accommodated the shaft run out and prevented the stock from leaking out. Below that, the gearbox bearing. Now it eliminated the product from getting into the bearing, but in a paper mill, it's a dirty, humid environment, and there's still contamination that can get into the bearing as well. And so what we put on there was a bearing isolator. It's a non-contact seal that goes on bearing housings. One part of it rotates with a shaft and the other part stationary. And as contamination would try to work its way into a bearing housing and get into the oil, causing premature bearing failure, the bearing isolator, our EXP, would actually keep the contamination out, and it also helps keep oil in. So there's also spending far less money on oil. And then the third approach that we took was we used a bushing to I believe it was a PPS, and I'll allow Cody to elaborate on the characteristics of those materials. But it was a PPS Ryton bushing that we used to fill the stuffing box to help stabilize the shaft even more. And the air seal would still work without the bushing. It would still seal, but we're still concerned about the bearing housing itself with the shaft moving. So helping stabilize that shaft with that bearing was a, a a big win. And what happened essentially is they went from repacking this pulper almost monthly and changing that oil in that gearbox. I don't know their interval, but it was fairly frequent. and probably weekly. And we went from that to just them almost being able to walk away from that application. So that frees them up to go work on other problems. And what we did there, instead of just slapping a seal on, is we took a systems approach. We looked at what was going on with the application itself and provided a solution that ended up I mean, it's still running today. This was one of our first ones. We did it in 2017, and it's still running today. Whereas they would have, I mean, been spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to keep this thing going over the last couple of, since 2017. So we're approaching, I don't know the exact number, but I would say we're well into six figures in cost savings there. And
Yeah.
that's just one application, and then it saves people time. And if you work in a paper mill or if you work in a chemical plant and you have an application that every week has an issue, that's gone. It's just
Yeah.
it's a burden off their shoulders.
Wow, that's a great story, and you actually paint enough of a visual verbally for me to follow along, which is not not always an easy task. I mean, I don't live in the world that you do, but to understand, that load on that shaft creates somewhat of a
Yes.
gyration. I mean, and you're able to stabilize it. And the air seal. I'm wondering, do you have any of that equipment on your website that I could
Yes, it's
pull
called
up?
our SAS. And that's actually a highly customized version. What we do is we custom engineer them to fit whatever envelope that we're working with.
So the air seal itself, there's air injected in and puts pressure here.
Yes, maybe scroll down and see if there's a cutaway or
Yeah.
there we
Oh,
go. Keep
oh
scrolling.
wow, that's pretty slick looking right there. I'm assuming that's a port.
Yes, that's a port for air to come in, and then there will be another port for a pressure gauge. And keep
Yeah.
scrolling and see if we can get to the image of that's
Oh yeah.
cutaway. That's a good image right there. Okay, so the way the air seal works is that one's beautifully machined. They're all beautifully machined. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
that really
comment on
looks
that.
good.
So the way the air seal works is air will come in from that port on the outside and
Right.
pressurize that throttle in between, right? And that's made of Thermex 945. Again, I would let Cody elaborate on the quality of that plastic, but it's a very high quality thermoplastic. And what happens is the air pressurizes internally, and that throttle is not actually rotating with the equipment, it's actually pivoting with the equipment. So as the shaft moves, that throttle will pivot and accommodate runout, and it basically just follows the shaft around and maintains a pressure on it. And it's so unbelievably simple that I don't like to over explain it. Is air comes in, pressurize, builds a back pressure internally. As long as that pressure that you have on the seal is higher than the head pressure that it's facing, it's going to hold back whatever it's sealing against, and it's going to move with the shaft as the shaft rotates. It's not going to rotate with the shaft. It's going to pivot with the shaft as the shaft
Yeah.
rotates.
So essentially it undulates with the shaft
Yes.
as it kind of okay.
Yes.
And these are where these holes are where the air is actually emitting. I'm assuming.
Correct. Correct.
Interesting. Cody, you want to talk about the material?
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of I mean, maybe I'm biased in this, Vince, but I'll say that's the secret sauce of an air seal is the material because your throttle material needs to be robust enough to use a word that Zach loves so much.
Yeah,
The
robust.
throttle,
I got that inside joke.
yeah, robust. The throttle material needs to be robust enough to handle the fact that it's being it's constantly under pressure. It's being squeezed. The throttle itself, it's being squeezed. It needs to handle the intermittent. The shaft is going to intermittently touch it from time to time. So it needs to be able to handle all of that, but it also needs to be forgiving enough that it's not going to wear the shaft because the point is that this is a non-contacting seal. So you kind of have to have a kind of a secret sauce of material selection to kind of fit in that perfect niche where it is a good, sturdy, strong material, but it's not too hard, so it's going to wear the shaft and cause problems. So
And it'll
uh,
maintain its size without thermal expansion when there's heat and whatnot. Sorry to cut you off there.
no, no,
Thought
I'm
that was
glad you brought that up because that is a very very kind of critical point there is that the coefficient of thermal expansion of the material needs to be such that it's not going to the clearances aren't going to open up as the product heats the as the process temperature raises. If you have a material that expands, then your clearance between the throttle and the shaft will increase such that it's not an effective seal anymore. So there is quite a bit of engineering. As Zach said, it is a simple product and like functionally and kind of just in terms of the pieces, it's very simple. But it also is somewhat complex in what it's actually trying to do. So yeah, functionally simple, but really a really cool engineered product that Zach is intimately involved in, and yeah, it's phenomenal. Zach's done a really phenomenal job with it.
The question, is there some degree of lubricity to that material too? I mean, is it almost by
Yeah,
design has some kind of
yeah,
a, go ahead.
there is Vince. I could tell you what the lubricity is, but then I'd have to kill you.
Uh,
So I won't do that. But there are some there are some fillers in there that give it some internal lubrication that yes, that do help with that wear characteristic.
One thing, this just happened. I was just at the WEFTEC show with the SEPCO group and just chit-chatting. And again, you guys are a great partner of ours, and we admire you. Corporate's about an hour away from me, so we're friends. And I asked a couple of folks, I was like, so if you could tell me what delineates SEPCO from other various products that are out at the trade show, what would it be? And
there's a few answers to
and
that.
the answer I got, which I thought was fascinating, was it's not about the product, it's the people and and I use the word Socratic, but the methodology by which you resolve issues with people, and introduce products that actually resolve the situation and not just slapping a seal on something or providing material that you think it might work, but actually understanding a clear, uh, concise understanding of what the materials are, what the application is, and then with 150 years of experience that was sitting at that table, arrive at some kind of a solution for the client. So it's not just about the material and the product, but the know-how and when to apply it. And in this particular instance with the pulper, it sounds like you've applied three different solutions that you carefully reviewed and analyzed to create a real success and
Mhm.
multi-figure savings for the client.
Mhm. I think a major part of that is that, we're not a major corporation, we're a family-owned company, and our culture is such that our goal is to help our customer. We're and then with the talent that we have on our team, between all of the minds combined, we've seen everything and we know what solutions to propose for what problems. And we've been across all industries and we've seen different pieces of rotating equipment and the problems they face. And we have the flexibility within our company to come up with solutions, and it's part of our culture is not just to sell as much as we can. It's more to go solve as many problems as we can and let the sales take care of themselves after that. I think that's a major part of it. I think our products are unique in that, of all sealing companies out there, all of our competitors, I would say that I confidently say that we're the only one with a full spectrum product line. Right. So some companies sell bearing isolators only. Some companies sell packing only. Some companies sell mechanical seals only. We do everything. We do air seals, mechanical seals, bushings, gaskets. We have a full spectrum line of seals, and we're also vertically integrated and we manufacture in the United States. So our packing, our seals, they're all made in the same plant. in the United States, and there's a connection from us going out in the field and solving problems to engineering to the part. We're not just plucking parts out of a price book and putting them in place. What we're doing is we're almost like a bespoke company. We're like, you get a bespoke suit that's tailored right to you. Like that's what we're doing in the field, and it's a really great thing. And
Yeah.
our service is great as well. So
Uh,
there's a lot of pride there.
and Cody, maybe Cody, are you more the packing expert or is that Zach?
No, Zach is far more of a packing expert
So,
than I,
so
for
let me
sure.
ask this. So correct me if I'm wrong, but don't they weave their own packing there at the plant?
Yes, it's a braiding process. And we have more braiders, domestic braiders than any company in the United States. And we take great pride in the quality of our braiding. So we have there might be an image that you could find, but it might take up too much time. But when you see the braiding process, it's basically spindles and then individual strings of yarn. That's what my fingers are representing here. And then they're spun into an actual rope of packing, if you will. And we take tremendous pride with our quality control. A lot of packing
Hmm.
is shipped
Yeah.
from overseas, and we can draw conclusions from that. And then we take pride with sourcing our materials.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
the other thing that we take major pride with, and I think this sets us apart, it's very unique, is actually helping the customer with the installation process of the packing as
Yeah.
well. Because we want our packing to last. We don't want it to just be purchased over and over and over again and fail. We want it to be, a reliable, system of packing. So there's really two things that come into play with packing. It's selecting the right packing. So if you had an abrasive process like you have in mines, and let's say it's abrasive and acidic, okay, you would want something with a 0 to 14 pH range capability that's a durable packing as well, and let's say it's high speed too. You might want some graphite in there. So that would, and don't get lost in, I'm going to start naming some braids of packing so we don't have to get super lost in the weeds here.
Yeah.
But let's say you had an abrasive process on a high speed pump that's 2 pH and it's high temp. Or I might have already said that, but you would choose our ML 560, which is a graphite impregnated carbon yarn. But if you were in facing, let's say, a food grade product, right? You would look at our 2240, ML 2240 or ML 2236, and we're able to, which is a PTFE food grade yarn, and we're able to help the customer select the right packing, and we're also able to teach the proper installation process, which is using our seat it tools that we provide for customers as well. And we
I
can
heard
go
about
into
that.
seat its if you have
Yeah,
questions on
I've
it.
actually heard about that too, where there's actually a method to successfully wrapping the packing correctly, and it requires teaching. You don't just hand somebody a spool and just go wrap it around that shaft or whatever
Correct.
Hmm.
and walk
Correct. Which
away.
which is very common, and a lot of
Yes.
packing jobs are done by contractors as well. And it's not their fault. There's just no instruction giving. It's like put this rope in this between this shaft and this
Hmm.
bore, and that could lead to a number of problems. I've seen people wrap all the way around instead of cutting individual rings. You're supposed to cut individual rings, but packing is referred to, its full name is compression packing. So it needs to compress in order to form its proper seal. So you need to, and each ring needs to be compressed individually. So this is where it gets funny in the field. Even if they have the rings cut properly and whatnot, you'll see in the field, I mean, somebody will take whatever tool they have in their hand and take two or three rings at a time and just I have calipers right now. They
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be using these, but they'd use a wrench or a screwdriver. And what we do with the seated tools is we actually wrap a plastic strip cut to the diameter of the shaft and use that to extend the nose of the packing follower. And feel free to interrupt with questions because
No, go
I'm
ahead.
gonna
This is
I'm throw
interesting.
Yeah. I'm throwing out the insider jargon now. But the packing follower, what you would do is use the packing follower to actually push on those strips, which extend the length of the follower, if you will, for the time being, and allow the packing to be compressed individually. The other thing people do, I mean, is they forget to where to put the landing ring, which is the a port, which is not too dissimilar to the throttle that you see on the air seal. It's essentially a port which receives the barrier fluid, whatever they're using for lubrication, and that needs to receive the proper barrier fluid in the proper location to provide lubrication for the packing as well, so it doesn't burn up. So what happens if you don't compress packing is you'll have high spots, low spots. It might be uneven instead of square. And what happens is with the high spots, depending on which way you look at it, but you're going to have wear on the shaft or you're going to have an open clearance. And neither are good. So the wear on the shaft is going to cause leaks anyway. It's going to cause it's going to start to build heat and cause friction, which is a problem that could actually burn up the packing itself or burn up the shaft, depending on which materials we're working with. One of those wins, right?
Yeah. I,
And
well, I'm sure. I've
also
seen,
opening clearances up, it's going to just cause leakage, and we don't want to see leakage with packing. We want to see a little bit, but not significant hemorrhaging. You want to see, depending on the application, a few drops per minute of barrier fluid from the lantern ring leaking out, but you don't want to see the product leaking out.
I've seen some result of deformed shafts as a result where they're just well, they need to be replaced. They're just
Yeah.
wavy.
Apple cord. They look
Yeah,
like
yeah,
apple
yeah,
cores.
like an apple.
Yeah.
Very good. Let me bring Cody into the conversation. Cody, I'm back on the website here,
Yeah,
and I really would love to see some of the products that you've got that you're going to talk about. So where do I go from here? Right here?
or three lines. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hit the hit high performance plastics there on the right side. See about midway down. There you go. And
Oh, wow.
then go to machine polymer parts there. Excellent. And then down a little bit, there is that one that says Thermex valve components. So what I said, one of the things that's unique about and Zach mentioned too about SEPCO is that we really try to solve customers' problems, and we do it kind of a multifaceted way, but we also have the ability to kind of custom engineer materials and specific products. So we've got this line, we call it Thermex, which is our kind of broad name for our line of engineered performance polymer material. So we've done some very interesting things with valve seats, valve components for like ball valve repair kits for
Okay.
particular customers.
Sure.
But in particular, we've developed in conjunction with a couple material suppliers a high temp material that's particularly interesting. So we've been approached by some customers who are in like steam valves and high temp valves where they're going upwards of 600 degrees F, and you don't have a polymer based valve material, a seat material that will withstand that kind of temperature.
Oh,
So typically these are metal on metal kind of seated valves, and they just don't last as long as a polymer a seat would. So um, we have developed a we call it the Thermex 940 is our grade for that. It's a high temp valve material, and we have successfully now, I can very proudly say, we're successfully sealing valves up to about 650 F continuous operating temperature with a really, really interesting material that will handle the temperature. It doesn't deform under load. So under that constant pressure of being kind of pressed upon by a ball valve seat, it's really interesting. And in this material, there's really nothing else like it out there. And
so
no
what
one else.
application, what industry, if you don't mind my asking, does that without naming names, what type of industry is using 600 plus Fahrenheit? I mean,
Yeah,
is it
so
uh,
this is a steam application, so it's a steam valve. So yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's these kinds of products. I think that demonstrates, as Zach rightly said, SEPCO's kind of commitment to that bespoke kind of thing. Like we want to take a look at these interesting applications and try to engineer something that potentially no one else has done before. Um, and really help solve problems. I mean, that's what it's about. We're not, and you might have said this too, Vince. We're not just a product company.
Yeah.
You can't just go on our website. I mean, you can, but you don't just go on our website and just click buy now kind of a thing. Like, there is a relational aspect to what we're doing, which it kind of goes back to. I won't ramble too long, but I'll say one of the other things that's kind of unique about us. Getting customers is hard enough, Vince, as you well know, but keeping customers is probably just as hard,
Okay.
and it may be harder. I don't know, but what's unique about SEPCO is that we don't really lose customers. We're still small, relatively speaking, but and I don't know the exact percentage. I couldn't necessarily guess, but very rarely do we lose customers. Generally speaking, when people are with us, we solve the problems and they stick around. And I think that says a
That's a
lot about.
perfect lead into an
Yeah.
analogy or an example that you've encountered. So we heard about the pulp and paper or the pulper. Can you give an example where you walked in and had I'm sure you got a million of them.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, yeah, I mean, I think that high temp valve seat was one particular application,
Well, what did they
where.
use it for?
Sorry.
What was the when you walked in and to resolve their issue, what was it like before? I mean, were they having valve failure on a monthly basis? Were they having metal on metal and causing it to deform? I mean, what happened prior to that?
Yeah, yeah. In this instance, because that those metal valves, metal on metal valves, it's still an industry standard. It's not like it was like, oh, we've got to fix this problem, or we're gonna, shut ourselves down, or that kind of a thing. It is more of like listening to a customer saying, we've got this headache, we've got this problem. It's kind of like one of those thorn in the side nuisance kind of things that we just don't like dealing with it. Not to mention the fact that we know that in a world where rising costs are a real thing, if can we help, save money? Can we reduce our costs? Can we, lower our downtime? All those kind of things. So it wasn't in that particular instance, and maybe this is a good example. It's not like SEPCO is only looking for the worst problems to solve. Like if you just got kind of a nuisance kind of a thing, uh, we want to make, honestly, and I'm not just saying this, like we want to make people's lives better with what we're doing. Um, and if it's a little problem or if it's a big problem, if and it does sound kind of weird to say, but it's true. If we can help people come into work and just have a better day, um, I think that's something we're going to try to do, and I think uh, that's our culture really, and that's what we're trying to do. Is we're not trying to sell products. We're just trying to make things better, and I think that shows in how we run our business. Does that mean we're not going to be ever going to be a multi-billion-dollar company? Yeah, I mean, probably not, but we're going to make some people happy, I think.
Right, but your statement it resonates with me, and it's so often overlooked. But when you have authentic people willing to engage in an authentic and genuine conversation, it's not just all this sales BS that's out there, but real talk with a real
Hmm.
person. Help me understand. I think I think you go to a whole new level as a relationship with a client, even with and friends and everybody else, loved ones, family members, everybody. If you just take it to that next level of authentic, real, genuine interest, which you guys clearly are exhibiting. My question though, Cody, not to beat a dead horse, but
Hmm.
what was the symptom that you made go away by having Thermex? So was there a clanging sound? Was it a valve failure? Was it a what was the indicator that said you need Thermex?
Yeah, well, so in this instance, again, the symptom is just shortened life of this particular valve is just not lasting very long.
Okay.
So what we do, what Thermex was able to do in this instance was basically increase that mean between downtime, right, or the length of time before they had to break this valve open and repair it again, right? So that's number one. But more importantly, again, going back to kind of the philosophy that we're talking about, is that it gave them peace of mind, right? That they know that they got a product that works, and that they've made it better. And in this instance, we're working with a valve manufacturer who's working with an end user. So we've kind of fixed we fixed two people's problems. So SEPCO typically works through distribution and through some OEMs, but so in this instance, we're not just making one end user happy, but we're working with a valve manufacturer, and then that product is going to an end user who's seeing better life. So it's kind of a chain of events where multiple people are affected by the solutions that we're offering here.
Fascinating. So you actually can go to a valve OEM too.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. SEPCO Products, nice company. Can we think of any other? Let me change up a little bit. We already mentioned that I met a couple of you guys at Turbo Pump Symposium, met a few more at WEFTEC. What's the next show that either one or both of you are going to be going to anytime soon?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. We just got an email about that during this podcast, so I don't know the list off the top of my head, but if you give me a second, I can look at it.
Sure, go ahead and look.
Um, let's see.
And
Well,
We're
we're
with
we're going to we're going to the boat show.
we're going to
Um,
Boat show?
Workboat. Yeah, Workboat in
the work
New
boat show
Orleans.
in New Orleans. We're going back to New
Nolans,
Orleans.
excuse me, Nolans. I was
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
last time I went to that show, I asked what the proper pronunciation is with my Uber driver, and I was
Please
told
pronounce it
Nolans.
properly. Yeah,
Nolans. Yeah, Nolans. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the you know that marine dredging industry is a big area of focus for SEPCO. We got a lot of products. Our packing in these valve seats that I've been talking about. There's a lot of valves in that market. So it's a big area of interest for
Yeah,
SEPCO for sure.
I learned a lot about that area of the world, and if you have a failure or a leakage, it's extremely problematic when it comes to the marine industry, uh,
Hmm.
where they actually shut down the vessel. All kinds of things can happen, so it's extremely critical for
Hmm.
things to be top notch, if you will. Right? Am I correct in saying that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely,
What about
absolutely.
pulp
You're
and paper industry? Are you guys going to be going to anything in the paper world anytime soon? Is there any paper conventions that pulp and paper conventions that
Not
resonate?
that I'm aware of. We're in a paper mill every week. Every one of us is in a different paper mill every week, and it's almost as though I don't want to sound arrogant, but like we have a major in most paper mills, and it's become such a regular part of my daily life that that I don't know. I don't know that there's anything planned. We do go to a lot of food shows. One being, and it's not necessarily food, but I've been to quite a few in Chicago. The bulk powder. Uh, you might want to correct me on the name, but it's the bulk and powder show. Powder bulk
That's
solids,
right. I think
maybe. Um,
powder bulk and solids. I think
yeah,
yeah, that's
powder
right.
bulk solids. And so that shows a unique one that we go to. Not all of our competitors go to because they're more focused on fluid sealing, whereas powder sealing is a very, very difficult thing to do because most seals require a fluid. So we go there with our air seal. We're probably looking at a mining expo next year. Yeah, quite a few different shows. We do
And
wastewater.
you'll be at Epic coming up shortly.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, Mine Expo. I went to that and tremendous show, Mine Expo. Are there analogies or examples you'd like to share before we wrap things up? I mean, this has been quite illuminating from both of you, Cody and Zach, sharing with me a little bit. Any other stories or
Yeah,
reasons why?
I could do this for 5 hours with stories.
No,
It just cut me off when you're just you've had enough.
well,
Um, food industry is a very unique industry because a lot of sealing companies don't typically pursue the food industry. Oftentimes that's because of the heavy powder content, and most seals aren't designed to seal powders. So that's a place we go to with air seals. And then another example would be let's go back to paper. Is the paper machine roll. So are you familiar with a paper machine?
I am to a limited degree. I live in Alabama, and we have a lot of paper.
Okay.
So I've been to IP and a few others out here.
So essentially, it's a large conveyor in series of up to 100 or more rolls on that conveyor. That's actually where the paper is made. So the process with all the pulpers and agitators and pumps that lead up to that point where it's actually made and finalized and finished product is on the paper machine. And there's rolls that are supported by large bearings, and these are gigantic rolls that have to be craned out if they need to be repaired. And we provide bearing isolators for those rolls, which is a very custom application. It's not something you could order out of a price book. It's something you would have to call us and say, hey, can you measure this and solve this problem? But what happens on the paper machine is that water and moisture and condensate, it depends on what part of the roll it's on, because there's different temperatures and moisture levels as you go down the roll, but they all find their way into the bearings. And the bearing housings are typically, I don't want to say they're all older because there's definitely new designs out there. But they're tough to seal. They're a unique housing and require a lot of customization. And we often go in and, I mentioned earlier the bespoke method where we apply a bearing isolator to fit whatever envelope they're dealing with there, and make it fit on a bearing housing. So we do that, and that's the thing with a lot of the stuff is customizable. And I'm going to show you. I have something on my desk right now. This is a bearing housing. This is an old bearing housing with an old lip seal in here, and lip seals are notorious for wearing shafts. Lip seals are very common. They're in your car, they're in your blender, in your kitchen. They're all over the place. But if you take the magnitude of a large shaft with extreme rotational speed, you start to have a wear part, right? So what we're doing with this is actually going on a spray cooler in a tobacco plant. I know that's not popular, but anyway, it's going on a cooler, and they're getting water into their bearings. And so we're going to build something custom to replace that whole entire assembly. And it's not a place where you just say, hey, let's slap a seal on here. It's a custom job to make a piece of equipment that's critical to the process last a lot longer.
So
I'll
is
kick
that
it
a
back to Cody. He's probably got stories too.
yeah? Is that a rubberized material that lip
Yeah,
seal?
it's probably in the Viton category, somewhere in that range.
So it eventually could wear out a bearing. I mean, a shaft, right? Or I mean, it could eventually cause
Mhm.
some.
Oh yeah, it's very common in gearboxes as well. Lip seals are notorious for wearing shafts, and once they wear the shaft, the contamination comes in, lubrication leaks out. So with a bearing isolator, you're looking at, and that's our EXP if you want to go on the website and see that. The bearing isolator, it's a non-contact product that allows for the seal to be, or the product to the excuse me, the application, the bearing housing, to be sealed without wearing the shaft. And what it does is it's called EXP because it's an expeller seal. It would expel any contamination away. And should anything get into it, what would happen is it would route it out. So yep, you're on it right there. And so you just click on any one of those, that would work.
Oh yeah.
So you see that there's a rotor and a stator, and the rotor rotates with the shaft. It's also a non-contact seal, much like the air seal. So it's rotating with the shaft, but it's not having any frictional wear on the shaft. And as the shaft turns, the rotor is going to expel contamination away. And should anything get in, which is rare, would have to be either static or in a very steamy environment. What the internals of the seal do is they would drain it out before it has any opportunity to get to the bearings. themselves. And on the back side of that, there's an oil return groove. So if oil wanted to leak out, it would, yep, right there, right on it. That oil return groove would actually return the oil back to the sump where it belongs. And these
Fascinating.
are very customizable. The one we're looking at is a press fit version that goes into standard pumps and motors and gearboxes, but we can mount them in a number of different ways. So you could scroll down a little bit. You can see, scroll down on the center. Yeah, right there. So FL, that's a flange mount. So click on that. And this can be bolted up to the housing.
I see.
That's often what we use on paper machine rolls or bigger pieces of equipment, or if you don't have a good bore to press into, we use a flange mount, and they can all be split. The flange mounted ones, they're not all split, but they can be split.
Yeah, for
So for
easier.
ease of installation, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another.
that's another thing. Split
uh,
seals are important. This goes for mechanical seals. We have a split mechanical seal, split air seal. If you were to put a solid seal on a large piece of equipment that's coupled to a large bearing, that's a very arduous task. Whereas with a split seal, you can just clamp it together without taking anything apart.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, and both of you touched on, or all three of us, is that the cost associated with downtime and repair. I mean, if you guys just help with, for example, Cody, with the valve, the Thermex, or the pulper. I mean, you take that and you put that kind of mindset throughout an entire factory. It's just unfathomable how much money you can help save
Mhm.
in downtime and maintenance and repair. Cody, you were going to add something else, I think?
I was, but now it's left me.
Sorry, Cody.
No, it's great. No, it's
I'll be
great.
quiet the rest of the show.
No, no,
No,
no.
it's great. No, it's phenomenal.
No, this
No,
has
it's great.
been very good to learn a little bit more about what
Yeah.
SEPCO is, what the meaning of SEPCO is, Sealing and Equipment Products Company. What a genius name, if you think about it.
Mm.
Family owned, still family owned, and made in America. I mean, what more do you want? And literally hundreds of years of experience combined when you add up everybody that has the know-how.
Hmm.
So yeah, this has been great. And I really want to thank you guys for just giving me a download on what SEPCO is, and sharing the great stories. I'm sure you got plenty more
Hmm.
where, if I have a problem, consult, listen, and then apply it, apply the
Hmm.
result and get the results that you're looking for. I mean, it's simple, and yet I'm sure you wish more people would reach out to get help. And that's a great way to wrap this up. How do people get a hold of you? Obviously, sepco.com is the website. Is that the best way, or do you have a email address you want to share or anything like that?
Let me jump in here first, Zach, and I'm gonna plug one thing because I'm a little partial to it because I've been intimately involved in it. But
Okay.
yeah, the web, we've been doing a lot of stuff with our web interface. So I would definitely tell people if they go to sepco.com and they click on any of our products and they click on a request a quote, or if they click on contact an expert, they can click those within any of our links or anything. They can fill out that form. That goes that goes directly to our inside folks, and I get a copy of it. And man, and we can jump on those requests. So like that's this really easy way to kind of get connected, and we can from that point plug you into the regional guys. But then, as always, if you're ever in the Austin area, even anywhere in the Central Texas area, can come by and see the plastics plant. You can catch me at Cody K at sepco.com, and I'd love to visit with anybody anytime.
And I guess, is it Zach N?
Yeah, so
That's
our emails are very simple and straightforward, which is good. So if you're ever in doubt, just type in the name and the first initial of the last name and at sepco.com. I want to say something about Cody's plastics division here. I think it's important, and I'm going to kick it back to you, Cody. But to just talk about how we're vertically integrated and we're not necessarily ordering billets of plastic, but we're actually molding billets from raw materials. So that is a very effective way of
Yeah.
being, efficient with our sales process.
Yeah, and we maybe we mentioned that a little bit. SEPCO is fully vertically integrated. Not fully vertical, but generally speaking, we do everything in house,
We're
right? I
not
mean,
mining metals, but we're,
yeah, correct, correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's unique. Again, SEPCO's the way SEPCO manufactures it is very unique in that we do try to control everything we possibly can, from quality and cost. So you know what you're getting with us. We're not going to hit you with massive price increases or just not have material because we were depending on 50 different suppliers, and like those are just things that we don't those are problems that we don't generally have, because we are fully vertically integrated. So we control our process, we control our quality, we control our price. Um, it's very unique, and it makes us very nimble. You know, we can respond, and we can offer really good, repeatable products.
Yeah, nimble is a great key word, being able to move on a dime very quickly.
Yeah.
Um, do you have a R&D department that actually experiments with different um, products and amounts per product and things like that? Is that
Yeah. Yeah, not necessarily an R&D product, R&D, what's the word I'm looking for?
department?
Department. That's right. Um, I kind of am the R&D department. Like we've just tinkered for a long time, and when these kind of solutions or these kind of problems come up, yeah, it's generally us in Austin, along with the expertise in Alabama, kind of all putting our heads together.
Great,
and the
great.
field is different than the lab. So the field is a great way to test things. So we do field testing of new products, but we also put them in realistic situations. So we have an engineer who will gladly take a hose and spray it on a pump and test a seal and see if water's getting in. We do
Hmm.
things like that, and we want to get to the reality of the situation versus a simulation of the situation.
Right.
So we do R&D. I wouldn't say it's a scientific lab white coat R&D as much as it is let's test this in a real life
Hmm.
situation R&D.
I
Yeah.
like I like it a lot. I have one more. We were talking about food grade, and um, I think you said you use some PTFE in the food grade.
Hmm.
Is there any other is okay, is PTFE getting a bad rap now? I'm just kind of curious about that. Is that something that there's pushback on, or is that the good stuff? I'm trying to remember PTFE.
Yeah, yeah. So the PTFE is kind of getting a bit of a bad image, but not necessarily the products that we use. So, um, a lot of the liquid and fine powder products that are unsintered, this is what you see like in coatings, in some applications that are used in like apparel, like waterproof apparel and stuff. Those are some of the stuff that's kind of really under a lot of scrutiny, under fire with respect to this PFAS stuff that's coming through. But in industrial applications where these products are in a centered kind of form, yeah, it's completely different. And I think there's going to be a lot of allowances made for our kind of version of PTFE per se, in food applications, and certainly in industrial applications, because one, it is safe, generally speaking, right? It's safe, and it's necessary. So yeah, I don't think there's any issues.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I would say
Interesting.
you don't want to drink hot coffee out of a PTFE mug, but you can use PTFE packing on a
Yeah,
mixer.
yeah. Correct,
It's just
correct.
not gonna. We're worried about leaching
Yeah,
Yeah,
hazard
no.
polymers into consumables.
yeah,
Yeah, and I'm glad we kind of resolved that because you hear it a lot, and I just wanted to make sure that we clarified that. So
sure,
the goal is to keep infiltration of other products getting through and getting and messing up, like in the pulp and paper and such. And
correct.
the flexibility of the material and the durability of the material is important. and therefore that's where the PTFE come in. But the idea is you're not going to get this PTFE going off into your food products. It's just to keep
Hmm.
it where it's supposed to be without any infiltration. So
Correct. Yep.
double-edged sword. And so I'm glad we straightened that out. Well, guys, I want to thank you. Did you have anything else to add, Cody? It looks like you were about to say.
No, no, great. No, that's great. Lovely.
Zach, are you good?
Good.
Well,
Thank you.
Quality Products, SEPCO, Sealing Equipment Product Company, Inc. Great company, great
That's it.
guys. Enjoyed it. And look forward to hearing more from you guys. Stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you,
Have a
Vince.
good one.
Thanks for joining me on lunch.